Is it presenting right now? It looks so very different.
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
Great. So, yes, while Marcel is searching for Atari Teenage Riot and Alec Empire, which is definitely two bands you guys should check out, I gonna deliver on his promise. I gonna Tokyo Drift, yes, go ahead. I gonna talk for 17 minutes. If you don't have questions, there will be a quiz in the end. It's not a test, as Marcel proposed. It's a quiz. I'm gonna talk about Project Thoth. That's what we're gonna do in the area of AI DevSecOps. Why is it interesting? What we're gonna do? I think hopefully that's part one of the quiz, by the way. Hopefully you remember that Daniel said yesterday, software ate the world. I mean, like 5 or 10 years ago, we said software is eating the world, but actually software ate the world. And now AI is going to eat software. And there was one consequences from all being software, and it was that everybody needs to be a software engineer or an API designer or an operator, right? If you look at all that DevOps stuff, it's basically enabling development teams, software guys, to be operators. That's what they tried. So if AI is eating now the software, does that mean that everybody has to be a software engineer again, especially the data scientists? Do they need to be software engineers? That is what we think is not really going to happen. They don't have to be software engineers. The data scientists have a very specific and very focused domain they are in, but they should understand software engineering. They should understand how to create a piece of software in a larger system context. They should understand how to operate that piece of software. That is actually what we are trying to deliver to these people. By the way, I remixed my slides, so I don't know what's happening next. It's a little bit like karaoke, so bear with me. So we would like to deliver to, in this case, specifically the data scientist people, something that helps them selecting their dependencies, right? If you look at a Jupyter Notebook, most often it's not just pandas. Most often it's a lot of packages. And if you imagine there's transitive dependencies, it's a freaking big bunch of dependencies that you need to manage. And these data scientist guys, they should not have a look at all these dependencies. They shouldn't think about, oh, if I have async IO in version 1.2.3, will it really work out with that stuff? Or if they see some kind of error in their pandas, do they really need to dig down to the level of, I don't know what, OpenBlast, like the mathematical libraries? They should just declare their dependencies or install their dependencies, and all the stuff that's happening in the background shouldn't be up to them. We want them to focus on data science in the best case. And by the way, that might be worthful, valuable comment. Data science, Open Data Hub, that is for us just the first proof point. Obviously, data science, AI, machine learning, Open Data Hub is close to our hearts because we are the AI Center of Excellence. We created that wonderful Roads product you heard about, I think, yesterday. We created that wonderful Open Data Hub project. So that is like a good target for us. We want to enhance these features or we want to enhance these projects. So it's pretty close to our hearts. But in general, whatever I'm talking about could be applied to Python developers. We're focusing on Python right now for the same reason. Python seems to be the predominant language in data science, therefore we use it. But our concepts could be also applied to, quiz time. Name your favorite language, programming language actually. So go ahead, we need at least 5 answers, right? So we can apply our concepts to C, to Python, that is what I said, to Haskell and to Lisp. These are wonderful languages. At least 3 of them I really don't like. 2 of them I like a lot, like Python and Python. Thanks, everybody. So helping the data scientist focus on his domain, we're going to help them by providing them kind of guidance on their dependencies. If you create a piece of if you create a piece of explainable AI, like in 5 years, if you create a piece of explainable AI, it is very important to know the software that created the model, to know the data that created the model, and to know the pipelines and the deployments that created the model. Imagine what happens to your sales bonuses if you run your machine learning model not on an Intel Skylake whatever CPU, but just because somebody made the decision on an Intel Moonraker whatever CPU, and the bonus will drop by 5 or 50 or 95%. That is something that we need to explain to all these business people, by the way. So traceability, predictability, really helping the people stay in their domain, but at the same time understanding the software engineering practice here is one thing. Provide capabilities to build and maintain the software. Yeah, again, data scientists stay in your domain. Data engineers stay in your domain. We would like to help you. We would like to do that cultural shift that Marcel talked about. These people need to understand what's happening in other domains, but they don't need to learn that, and they don't need to perfect on that one. So we would like to provide these capabilities. And actually, we want to provide automation. That is pipelines and OpenShift or bots living on GitHub and being good team members. That is some kind of automation so that we can basically offload the mundane work from the human being to a piece of software, a piece of code. If you're colorblind, you don't wonder about the colors or the colored bars. If you're not colorblind, you might wonder why it's blue and green. If you're colorblind, please let me know, because I would like to know how to enhance the presentation. The next slide I've stolen is just to set a large context, right? Project Thoth is basically focusing at the green box on the upper left, the developer. We're basically focusing on speeding up development work. And this development work includes Python developers, which are creating really Python applications. This development box also includes the data scientist who's creating a model, because all that stuff is software from our point of view. And we are a little bit in that blue box. I think Marcel is definitely in that blue box on the upper right corner. It's called operations. But we also touch or feed into operations with Project Thoth. So whenever you have created and released a machine learning application or an intelligent application, when the data scientist has finished his model and is happy with the model, and when the DevOps people take over and wrap it up into a wonderful container and gonna deploy all that stuff onto some OpenShift on Operate First, that is a little bit of operations that we touch here. It's basically that area in the middle. That's why I call it all that stuff blue and green. This slide is, by the way, from a presentation on OpenShift GitOps, which is one of our wonderful products. I think the guys on Operate First gonna deploy it in the near future. It is helping you a lot with deploying your stuff. This is a conceptual view of what we are talking about, right? I'm not talking about the architecture. I'm not talking about the hardware. I don't care about all that stuff. Project Thoth cares about development, real applications, data science, and a little bit about operations, because we are DevOps people and that's what we do. This is a thing that you might need to look up in the presentation. I don't know if it's coming good through good in the screen right now. It is more or less a flowchart and a component view of what we are talking about, right? On the left side, you got the data scientists again. You got the Python developers. They are creating Python software. They're going to push it through the OpenShift container platform, all these CI, CD pipelines. And in the end, hopefully, the application lands on a production system. As you can read from the title, again, we are focusing on the data scientists, but we are targeting the whole Python development community. Good, so Who are we targeting? The data scientist. He's responsible for creating the model. We are not looking at the data engineer, for example. It is a persona that is targeted in the larger context of Open Data Hub or roads. Project Thoth is targeting at the developer, the AI developer, the machine learning wrapper guy, the person who's really responsible for taking the model being created and versioned somewhere into a running service. You need to somewhere serve the inference endpoint of your model so that other parts of your application system can use it. We are also targeting the machine learning engineer, the machine learning DevSecOps person. That is interesting. If you recall the picture from the page before, that is especially interesting because we see a general movement in IT. Everything that has happened in production in the past is pushed to the left side, to the development persons who are responsible for creating an applications. If we are talking about security fixes, they should do that, at least should be aware. If we are talking about optimizations of a deployment or configuration of a deployment, they should do it or should at least be aware. So everything is floating to the left side to the developers. And we in Project Thoth want to support that movement from the right, from the operational side to the left, to the development side by providing the services. Most often, our services are provided as bots or pipelines or workflows or whatever you call them. It is not really a human being interacting with our service. That's not true for one case where the data scientist sits in their notebook. I think Francesco is going to talk about that in a few minutes. I'm going to talk for 17 minutes, remember. So Francesco will talk about the interactive interaction with our services, but most often it will be kind of a bot. We have one bot living on GitHub, which is continuously updating your dependencies. You don't have to care, especially if you're a data scientist, you created your model, you put it in a repository, and maybe you're going to come back in half a year or in a year to update something. But during that period, somebody needs to take care of the software that is used to wrap up your model and to serve the inference endpoint, for example. And that is done by machine learning DevSecOps bots. As I said, we got one on GitHub. Interview? No, wait. Question? Test. Questions. Let's do questions. Any questions up until now?
I had a question.
Go ahead.
So I asked this a bit ago, and I think it kind of got answered, but would Project Thoth be a part of AI Ops or like a section of it, or at least some of what Thoth does?
Oh, that you're asking me, right? So the answer is obviously yes, of course. I mean, if you're looking at AI Ops and if you're looking at what Marcel said, it's AI that is autonomously driving your IT components, your software components. Yeah, we would like to be part of that. How are we part of that? By feeding into the deployment of this intelligent application, which is maintaining your database or operating your database. So I would answer something like, yeah, but in an indirect way. We are providing all the infrastructure to create these intelligent ops which operate your IT. But we are not really tuning something in a database, or we are not really tuning something in a deployment of an application. Does that somehow answer your question?
Yeah. So it's like yeah, that makes sense. It's more of like a tooling to help, but it's not directly operations. Gotcha.
So Gage, you're working with Eric, right?
Yes, Eric.
Okay, good. Thanks for the question. I'm going to make sure that Eric is going to send you the $5,000 bonus this year, right?
Perfect.
Thanks for the question. Cool. Wait, now I need to find my mouse. So let's focus a little bit more on the data science persona, right? that is that lower left side where he's working. And I just would like to iterate over that focus aspect that we have, right? All the stuff that we are trying to do for the data science persona is take work off of that persona, work that we think the persona should do, like all the software engineering, know about the software packages, know about quirks and all the versions, know about transitive dependencies, maybe even know about what needs to configure it in what way to have a very efficient deployment, right? All that stuff should be supported by the services that we are providing. It should not be in the brain cycles, or it should not eat up brain cycles of the data scientists, because they should focus on really creating the model, training a model, processing it to this. If you imagine that workflow, the data scientist persona is really responsible to a business owner, right? He's not responsible to some kind of operations people or something. The data scientists need to make sure that they create a model with a very high accuracy and so on. All the rest, they shouldn't care about. That is exactly what we want to do. What's in the box? I think you will see a lot of that in a few minutes. There's a little bit of Elira. Yes, there's a little bit of Jupyter Hub extensions as seen in Elira that is used in a data science notebook. So if you need to install a dependency like pandas, you're gonna use that wonderful UI. And the Thoth guidance service will tell you, oh, okay, this is what you should use. There's pipelines to build container images. Container images is another topic that is very software engineering related, that is very DevOps related, that the data scientist persona should be aware of, because ultimately, whatever you do, we're going to package it up in a container image and we're going to deploy that container image on OpenShift. But that's it. The data scientist persona should be aware, but not care more. That is why we provide these OpenShift pipelines to support the building of container images. Then we got the Thoth bot on GitHub. I said that before. You're going to keep your dependencies up to date. If you're going to leave the building and done with the data science part, the Thoth bot will take care of software engineering parts, like security fixes. We don't need the data scientist for that one. The last thing that we're going to provide is GitOps workflows. So when the data scientist persona is happy with the quality of the model, when the machine learning engineer, DevOps engineer is happy with the application serving the model, when all these things are okay, somebody needs to deploy all that stuff to a production environment. And that is what happens by using the GitOps practice, using the OpenShift GitOps product, and really have these workflows in place to deploy machine learning applications. Again, Francesco will talk about that at least a little bit. What else? That's just a reminder for all of us. So come over, have a look at what we are doing. I put in a few links. You're gonna get the tutorial mentioned in the second line for free, because if you stay online, which you are supposed to do, which you are mandated to do actually, if you stay online, Francesco gonna walk you through that tutorial. Have a look at what we are doing with all the bots on GitOps, on GitHub. I think it's valuable, even to Python projects, so it must not be a data science project we are talking about. And have a look at all the documentation. So all the wonderful people in the Project Thoth team create a lot of documentation. There's, as always, in an AI application, there's a little bit of machine learning, actually reinforcement learning that we're doing. There's a lot of data that we generate and that we aggregate and analyze. And there is a software system around the reinforcement learning part, which makes up the Thoth service. So have a look at that, the documentation on Thoth Station Ninjas. That's it. How I'm doing time-wise. What is the time? Do we need to do another round of questions? No. Do we need to do a quiz or a test? No?
I have a question again, if you would like to answer it.
I want to make like 10,000 a month or what? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So so Project Thoth uses a little bit of AI for things, correct?
Yeah.
Right. So is there any sort of anomaly detection or any sort of operations to manage or make sure that's not drifting away at all? Like, is there anything in the back of Project Thoth that's sort of keeping it on track? Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. Let me have a look at the participant list. Frido, would you like to go into that one? Because my super amateurish answer would be, we don't need that stuff, right? We analyze a bunch of data. We conclude observations from that. And then we have that reinforcement learning model that is figuring out what might be the best software stack. I don't see a drift in there. Or maybe the drift is exactly what we want to show to the end user. Frido, comment on that one? Maybe he's busy doing other things like coding. Good. Gage, I'm going to take that home because I think we don't have the problem of drift in our models. The models are very short-lived. So when I talk about reinforcement learning, it's really per user request. It's happening in a background task, basically, so there's no real interaction given, right? So it's on every user's request that we are trying to learn what is the best software stack based on all the observation that we made, based on the runtime environment that the user provided, based on restrictions. It's called restrictions that we have. So I think the problem of drift doesn't really apply. But let me have a look. Click on the last link on the slide. Join our channel. Let's have that conversation.
Okay, will do.
Cool. Thank you. Done.
So maybe just a TLDL, too long didn't listen thing. So if AI ops is using machine learning to replace mundane tasks in operations and in DevOps, would AI DevSecOps or / Project Thoth be removing mundane tasks in the development workflow from?
Yes. It's
except for the how do I create a for loop, right? So you don't take away the programming stuff, but everything that is around that programming, which Python environment, where do I deploy my stuff? What is the stack, dependencies, yada, yada, yada. If you just want to write for loops for creating Minecraft, autonomous Minecraft agents. So if you just want to write for loops and concentrate on that, AI DevSecOps is your help.
We're definitely against approaches and practices like low code. I think that will not work out in the IT in the future. We require people to code, but we're going to take away all the rest, right? If you write your algorithm, we're going to wrap it up in all the best, whatever that means. That might be security-wise, that might be performance-wise, that might be latest and greatest, right? If you want to live on the edge, we can advise you with good music and good software. So you're going to do your algorithm. We're going to advise you on the best dependencies that you should install with regards to your target runtime environment. So we're going to take that work off of you. We're going to update that stuff permanently or continuously. So you don't have to care about that anyways. It is like that really not very much love receiving work of doing translations. But nobody wants to do a translation for a piece of software. That's one of the mundane tasks. Updating dependencies, no, nobody wants to do that. And our approach is to do that upfront so that we can provide that service to others. Good. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you, Christoph. Thank you, Marcel.
Thank you.
And if anybody else has any more questions, please let us know. If not, we will be resuming in about 30 minutes for Francesco's tutorial that Christoph mentioned earlier. He will be walking over how you can use all of these Jupyter Labs along with some Elira pipelines as well. So please join in. And thank you once again.